everybody. This is Angela Winter with Horn and More. Today, I'm really excited to have someone a little bit different on our interview today. We have a lot of soloists and a lot of professors, but today we have Chuck Ward. Chuck Ward is very well known in the horn community, both as a performer and as a brass instrument repair specialist. He's been active for well over 40 years. He started his own repair business in 1997 in Chardon, Ohio. He's worked with major manufacturers like Kahn and King and UMI. He's just had a really rich and wonderful life in the horn community in a bunch of different ways, and he's one of the top repair experts in the country. He's about to enter retirement, and I am so thankful that we get to speak with him a little bit as he's entering this new phase of his life. So, Chuck, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. When I look you up online, I find a lot about your repair business, but I know that you've had a really robust playing career too. So can you just tell us a little bit about sort of your origin story, like what drew you to the horn, and what did your first phase of your career sort of look like?
Well, when I was in the end of grade school, my mother was supposed to go to the junior high school, and I said, "Yeah, I want to play clarinet." So she came home with a French horn. And I'm going, "That's not a clarinet, you know." But they obviously needed French horns, so I started learning and studied with Marianne Stevens. At the time, was a fourth horn player in the Milwaukee Symphony, and Roland Pandolfi for 6 months, and then he moved on to St. Louis. And I still stay in contact with him over the years. And then I decided I loved it, go in. So I went and I started for 1 year at the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. And then, of course, it was during the Vietnam War. And so, in order to avoid being drafted, I enlisted into the 5th United States Army Band, which was located just north of Chicago. And talk about, in Milwaukee, I was a big fish in a small pond. I got to the Fifth Army Band and I was a small fish in a big pond. I mean, six of the guys had, I was 19, six of the guys had bachelor's degrees, and of those, three had master's degree in music. And it was overwhelming. Now, these are just the French horn players. So, in any case, I learned an awful lot there. I eventually ended up going to Cleveland. I got out. I was in Korea my last year, and I was looking to go to Juilliard. I had talked with James Chambers over the years, and he said, "Yeah, I'll get you in." Well, then he wrote me a very nice letter in January of 1969 saying that he already had his class filled. So by the time I got an early out in June, uh, I didn't know where to go. So I decided I'm going to give the Cleveland Institute of Music a try. So I went and auditioned, was accepted, and studied there with Bill Slocum for 4 years. James Levine was the conductor of the orchestra, which was, incredible in spite of the other things in his life. But he was probably one of the greats. And so that was quite an experience. And then I started playing extra with the Cleveland Orchestra only off stage because Mike Bloom did not like me because I wouldn't study with him. So I could play all the offstage stuff after graduation. And then he was basically forced out of the orchestra back in, I think it was 1977. And I got a call right away because they were playing Mahler 6 to come in and actually be on stage with the Cleveland Orchestra. So, and then for the next 3 years, that's what I did. Did a lot of playing. Yeah, a 3 month, 30 days tour in Europe with the Cleveland Orchestra. And then my wife told me on a phone call that George McCracken, who was my mentor at the King Musical Instrument Company at the time, was quitting, which I couldn't believe. And then when I got back, I found out that was true. We're kind of leaping into another area of my career. But in any case, I continued. The company allowed me to play extra because I started there in 73. I started playing in 77, and they allowed me to take those 30 days off with the orchestra, which was really nice. And then when I came back, I was promoted to manager of design engineering, and from there, I pretty much was told you can't play anymore with the orchestra because the rehearsals were during the day, and as a manager, I had to be there. So it's one of those fish or cut bait moments. And so And then I played with the Metropolitan Brass Quintet up until about 1984. We played all around, and then I realized that I just want to move out to the country, which I did in Chardon, Ohio. And I basically kind of stopped playing horn at the time. And I ended up playing C trumpet at church in praise and worship groups. My wife played piano. And so that's pretty much my playing career. Those are the highlights. So,
Well, you are really well known as a repair person and working on design. What inspired, I mean, you talked a little bit about the shift, but can you tell us what drew you to repair? And how did you
yeah.
get started? How were you trained in that?
Well, while I was at the Institute of Music in Cleveland, I like to work with my hands like you do. And I worked with Al Schmitter, third horn player, and I said, well, I'm going to design a French horn mute. So anyway, he encouraged me. He didn't do anything, but he kept testing them out for me and things like that. And then eventually I started selling mutes, and I sold one to George McCracken. And he was the design engineer for King Musical Instruments, and he was a French horn player. So he called me up and said, "Would you like to get a job repairing at King Musical Instruments?" I said, "Yeah." So anyway, I could continue playing and still do learning the trade of repairing brass instruments. And I did that for 5 years. And then, like I say, I came back from Europe and they moved me into engineering because I was doing a lot of stuff for George McCracken. And so I spent probably 10% of my time in the engineering office as opposed to repairing. But learning repairing at that factory during that time was amazing because I probably did anywhere from 5, sometimes 10 overhauls of all brass instruments in the sense of French horns and trombones mainly. And so I got a good experience and a good background in that stuff. So then I moved into engineering. That was at the time the King Musical Instruments, and then they were going into bankruptcy as well as the Kahn Company back in 1981. So things were pretty tight at that time. And then the owner of the Kahn Company bought King Musical Instruments. I can't imagine any bank agreeing to that loan. Two companies going into bankruptcy, and they merged them together. And we stayed separate companies until Bernard Muskanner from Sweden bought the whole company, Kahn and King. And so he called it then United Musical Instruments. And so that continued well. He put millions of dollars into the company, mainly in tooling, like CNC machines and things like that. Big improvement. And so, but uh, the company just wasn't, they were a band instrument company strictly. As much as they thought that they were in the pro market, they weren't. They just didn't get it. We finally did move the Kahn factory from Abilene, Texas to Eastlake, Ohio, and and that took a little time. It took about 2 years to get in thinner bells, tapered rotors, things like that to get into production because we still had a big workload of in-process instruments coming to the factory that we had to finish first. So, in any case, I left the company at the end of '96, and I thought that they would be, uh, I don't know, I didn't get along with the owner near the end because I realized that he was pretty lost when it came to the pro market and almost didn't want to talk about it. So I thought I got to get out. Well, they offered me a 2-year contract of a monthly payment, whether I worked or not, mainly to keep me quiet. And then I continued working for them probably for the next 20 years, doing all their screw bells. I just cut the bells, installed the rings, and then I sent them back to the factory. So that, in a sense, that really helped me get my business off the ground. And so, and I kept up that relationship up until about 2 years ago. And then I finally said, guys, you got to learn how to do this stuff yourself. And that included cutting trombone bells for the Bach and Kahn Company out of Elkhart, Indiana. So anyway, I made videos of that so they could see how to do it, which is pretty pathetic when you think about it. But in any case, that's about it.
Well, it sounds to me like, I think a lot of people they might be interested in repair, or but they don't know, you know, they're it sounds like a lot of people's start is like yours. We started in school, we
Yeah,
wanted to play this instrument, and then, you know, once you sort of join this world, you realize that that there are other career fields within it. And it sounds like yours was one of sort of some luck and some apprenticeship, and then just being naturally good. What advice would you give to somebody that's sort of interested in maybe getting involved in repair? Like, how could they start, or where could they study, or who could they talk to,
yeah.
apprentice with?
Well, 40 years up until about 40 years ago, uh, young people could go work in a music store and work with the repairman there and learn the trade. Or you can go up to a place like Red Wing in Minnesota, and they teach, I think it's a 1 year course in repairing all instruments. It's just not brass. But anyway, that gets you the basics. And of course, today they can't go to a music store. Music stores don't have repair people anymore. And so uh, that pretty much ended everything as far as repair careers. And so I just tell people who always ask me, they want to come and learn what I do. I said, you got to learn how to take dents out of a horn. You got to learn the basics, understanding valves, you know, tolerances and things like that. And, you know, I think there was one person that actually went to the school to learn. But other than that, they want to just jump in and, you know, to do what I do and what other professionals do. And they're not ready for that. And there's no money in it, to be honest with you. And so that's not much of an incentive for people to want to do it. But I'm working possibly with one for sure this summer, learning valve rebuild. And then there might be another one. I'm not mentioning names, but because we have to see how they do. But in any case, I've tried over the years to get people into this. And the only thing they can really do is if they tie in with somebody like myself, if they can, to learn and or go to the school and learn and then get a job or start it yourself. But you can't get a job in a music store anymore. It's kind of a lost art. So,
Right. Things really have changed. I think that
oh
bookstores,
yes,
music stores have really gone the sort of the same
oh yeah,
route, just as that things have changed. Well, I think that you've had such a long and rich career, and you really know the mechanics and the physics, and you've also worked with so many horn players, that one
yeah.
thing I've always wanted to ask someone like you is, when someone is looking to purchase a horn, because I think you all know better than anything else, like, what should we like play and test and how should we approach looking to purchase a horn or find a horn that suits us?
Well, obviously you talk to your teacher first, okay, and avoid eBay at all costs. Okay, they always say the valves are good, but I guarantee you that 99% of French horns bought on eBay need a valve rebuild. So try to avoid that. And I understand money is a big issue. Some of these new horns, even out of the mass-produced factories, like Kahn and King, or King's gone, I think. Uh, Kahn and Holton. Holton's. We ended up moving Holton up here to the Eastlake facility too. So I mean, we had. Well, I won't get into that, but in any case, it's going to be difficult to say the least. So. I'm trying to remember the question. I'm sorry about
Just what should when one
getting
goes
into
to
the
a
business.
convention or IHS and they're playing horns, like, what is it that we should
Oh
like
yeah.
listen for and look for?
Well, again, rely on the teachers, rely on uh, your colleagues and what they play. And mostly, if you're going to buy an instrument, especially if it's, let's say it's a nicely used instrument, uh, have somebody play it, have a tech somewhere if they have the ability to at least check it for compression. Unfortunately, all the techs that are out there who don't know what they're doing, which there's a lot of, uh, they have a little gadget that reads the compression in a horn, which doesn't take into effect the corrosion that's inside or the loose slides and things like that. So you need to take it to somebody that you trust or whatever. And I've even solved problems on the phone with professionals. That they bought a new horn and it's not playing right, and they took it back to the dealer, and the dealer said, "Well, this looks perfectly fine to us." And then I solved the problem over the phone with them. So, and I don't mind doing that, but um, I don't know. It's very difficult, but I would say some of the better brands, and I might get in trouble with this. Uh, Yamaha is without a doubt the best manufactured brass instrument in the world. Okay, the quality is unsurpassed. Okay, now you get into playing of it, it may not suit you, and I understand that. A lot of the European horns that are uh, come to the States are excellent too. Basically, because even these horn makers or assemblers here in the United States, they buy all their stuff from Europe, especially the valves, and the valves are excellent. So, it's expensive to go that route, but with Kahn and Holton and whatever else, I mean, they're basically dying on the vine. So, and you need to look somewhere else, and I'm not worried about getting in trouble for saying that, but in any case, I want to be honest with people and make sure they make right decisions. So
Well, okay, so since you've seen, I don't know, thousands and thousands of horns and you've seen thousands of problems, some of them probably by our own design and lack of care. What's a
yeah.
piece of advice that you'd give horn players about caring for their instrument that you wish people would listen to?
Okay, am I got it right here? Let me know if this you can read it. Is
Raise it up a little bit for us.
that okay?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sincere about that. Okay, um, I don't care what oil you use, just use oil. Some of the horns that come into me that are borderline valve oil, I make a mixture for them. Half motor oil, half valve oil. Okay. And it makes a big difference in compression so that they can play. Uh, but you got to oil stuff. Even these model water keys, they freeze up. Well, they just put a drop of valve oil in there. Okay. That'll take care of it. But grease the slides, things like that. Just the basic maintenance. Oil the valves, grease the slides, and empty out moisture after you're done playing. And you'll do a lot better than just like COVID. Everybody put their horns away wet or not being cleaned, and then all that green stuff just sort of grew after about a year, and I ended up with a lot of those horns. But I understand. If they did everything nicely, I wouldn't have a job. So I used to tell that to my chiropractor. He'd say, "Well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that." Yeah, but then I wouldn't be here. So anyway,
So the simplest advice is all the things we learned probably in middle school or whenever we started the first day. Just grease your slides, oil your valves, and get the water out. The simplest things
yeah,
are the ones we should
yeah,
listen to. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, you have had a really long and rich career, and you're about to enter into a new phase of retirement. So, what are you going to miss about the horn world, and what are you looking forward to as you enter this new phase of your life?
Well, right now I'm going to crawl to my 80th birthday in November, and then I'll see what happens after that. I've already put the word out that I'm going to be retiring, but I will still take care of the guys here in Cleveland. And then, some pros that I've done a lot of work for over the years, I'll do that. But for the last 2 years, I've been sending all the small stuff, the kids stuff, student stuff. I sent it to somebody else, and I've just stay away from that. But at my age, you can't just like I used to do two, sometimes three chemical cleans in one day because somebody brings three horns from the central Pennsylvania, and now one is enough. I mean, it's just at my age, energy is a big deal. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I promised, like Rich King from the Cleveland Orchestra, I said, I'm shooting for 80, Rich. After that, we'll see what happens. So,
Well, I wish you a long and wonderful and active retirement doing whatever it is you want to do.
oh, thank you.
And thank
Nice.
you so much for joining us today, and thanks for all the wonderful stories and advice. And I wish you the happiest, longest retirement.
All right. You're welcome, Angela. Thank you.
Thank you.